Right, I think we'll get going then, everyone. So, good morning. Thank you all for joining us today for our digital surgery webinar about building press coverage and getting links with Carrie Rose, who's CEO and co-founder of Rise at 7. Just so for people who haven't joined us before, digital surgery is a platform which is designed to share some really interesting insights from thought leaders and experts like Carrie. Our mission is to sort of just teach and provide marketing people with some practical knowledge that you can kind of get started with straight away. As I said, the talk will probably be around about 20 minutes to half an hour. We'll have the opportunity for some questions at the end. But if you do have any questions during the talk, please do pop them in the Q&A tab at the bottom, and we'll aim to answer these at the end. So without further ado, we'll kick things off and I will pass things over to you, Carrie.
Amazing. I'll just share my screen. Oh, doing all the usual technical stuff. Can you see my million things on my...
Now that looks very familiar to my desktop, that does, Carrie.
Honestly, I cleared it all the other day. I'm an absolute nightmare. If anybody knows me, they know that I'm an organized mess. That's what my mum calls me anyway. So... Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me onto this talk. I'm going to be covering how to get press coverage and links. I've got 1,000,001 campaign examples, mostly to inspire you guys, to show you the ways of that we think when we come to building links, and lots of sort of thinking that I've gone for over the last 2 years when it came to launching an agency, and how I decided that I wanted to be different, and how I decided to execute campaigns like nobody else did. So yeah, hopefully everything will be really useful. We've got loads of questions at the end, and apparently I talk really fast and I fly through this, but hopefully I think the slides will be shared so you can do your screenshots and all that sort of stuff like later on. So I guess I'll start with this. Are we a slave to keywords and landing pages, or is there room for creativity? This is something that I actually got inspired by this a couple of years ago. A guy from Microsoft did a talk, and I just sat in the audience listening to it, and he was basically saying how SEO needs to get more creative. That's literally what he said. And I felt the same at the time. And I always thought, you know, is there room for creativity within the SEO industry? So as I mentioned, this talk will be full of inspiration, lots of case studies. I guess when we talk about the market, this is what the market looks like. We have technical SEO on the left-hand side, then we have like the creative and advertising side. Those two kind of markets didn't talk to each other, very, very separate. Technical SEO will look at the creative side of the, I guess, industry and think, oh, that's just a fluffy marketing side. And creative and advertising look at the technical SEO side and might even call us the geeky side or something like that. Those two kind of areas in marketing never really talked to each other. There was never something that really worked together. There's a lot of integrated agencies that say that they do bits of everything, but actually we all know that, you know, when you don't specialize, or if you have, you know, can do bits of everything, then you're not really an expert at one thing. But we knew that one day this is going to change. We knew that one day the creative and advertising side will jump across the fence into SEO, or the other way, the technical and SEO side will jump across the fence into creating and advertising. However, we waited and that didn't happen. So instead of waiting for it to happen, we thought, why don't we create it? So when I used to work at my old agency, Branded 3 and Edit, essentially I was the creative campaigns person. I was running all the big creative campaigns to get links for brands, winning awards and all that sort of stuff. And my co-founder Stephen Kenwright was very good at the SEO, digital strategy and growth as a business. So we decided, as two people that came together, let's bring those two kind of disciplines together for the first time. I've seen agencies do something similar in the past, but definitely not kind of like pure creative and brand bringing together with technical SEO. So that's why we launched Rise at 7. That is literally the exact reason, is because we knew that we could deliver bigger and better results than any agency in the world because we put those two things together. And that's why we've won clients like this. I remember the moment that I walked into Misguided and I basically said, like, this is what we do. And that's why we won it on the spot, is because for once there was an agency that cared about brand, an SEO agency that understood brand, understood social media, or even vice versa. That's not something that they hadn't really seen before. So yeah, we had like Pretty Little Thing, PlayStation Game, Odeon. These are just some of the clients that we've won in our first 2 years. That's unheard of, by the way. When I launched Rise at 7, I literally thought I'd be working with like Tim's Tiles, you know, like small kind of like B2B brands or anything like that. But the fact that we won these in our first 18 months is like unheard of. Summary, we now get to 70 staff, about to hit 4 million. That's mad. Like my life has been crazy over the last like COVID and lockdown and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not going to lie, I'm absolutely knackered. So I guess what we did is we got more people to search for your brand and your keywords, such as Nike Air Force One, or we get the brands to come up when they're not searching for the brand. E.g., if people are searching for white sneakers, we get Nike to come up. So that's just an example of the sort of things that we do. And the way that we thought about it is, why can't John Lewis ad also work for search? So this was when it was the Elton John advert a couple of years ago for John Lewis. And essentially what they were trying to push at the time was pianos. It was a big part of their advert. It was all across their website in terms of like banner ads for pianos and all that sort of stuff. Pianos are expensive, obviously, to buy. However, if you typed in pianos during that time of the John Lewis ad, John Lewis didn't even come up. But that's what I mean by creative and advertising didn't really talk to SEO, and SEO didn't talk to creative and advertising. It's mental that the SEO team didn't even try to get ranking for pianos or have landing pages or anything like that during this moment in time. And this is what I mean by how we bring those things together. So what is creativity and why is it important? AI and machines might be taking over our marketing, automating absolutely everything, including multi-channel performance. But what machines can't do is manufacture creativity. They can't just be more creative than people and humans. They just can't. So that's something that will never take your jobs. So if you want to future-proof your brain, you just need to make it more creative. According to this guy, I don't even know who he is, but I really like the quote. But this is the guy from Microsoft that I watched speak a couple of years ago, and he basically said, if there's one thing you can focus on to differentiate yourself from others and make sure you stay relevant for longer, it's just being creative. And that's why we do what we do. So list of most important skills of from the World Economic Forum in 2015 basically put creativity number 10. However, in 2020, it's number 3. I haven't seen the 2021 list, so I have no idea where creativity sits on that. The fact that it's going up and up is absolutely crazy. And being creative in search is giving a brand something that money just can't buy. It's about building organic brand search. So people that actually search for your brand, such as, I don't know, booking.com holidays or booking.com hotels or anything like that, rather than searching for hotels. And it's about getting links just because you're awesome. So I actually said this in 2020, and somebody asked me for a quote the other day about like the future of SEO. And I basically just resent this. And the reason being is I don't think it's changed. The importance of brand in search. So in 2020, links will become less about search and more about engagement. So the responsibility will fall on SEOs to build links that actually get clicked on and push the brand through wider platform engagement. The highlight that I want you to focus on in this talk is links that get clicked on. There's been so many cases that I've seen in the past where I've built links on Forbes, I've built links on BBC. And then when you look into the GA of like, okay, how many people went on that article and then came to our client site? You're talking like 3, 5, 6, something like that. Whereas I've built links on Hello Magazine or, I don't know, Manchester Evening News, and that I've drove literally 7,000. So really understanding who your audience, where they are, and how to get links that actually get clicked on. I'm going to show you how to do that all now. But being creative in search is not new. So it's not like Rise at 7 just came along and just kind of like changed the world. These are some examples that have been done years ago about being creative with keywords. So Snickers, you're not you when you're hungry. This was a PPC strategy, but really good for inspiration around basically they bidded on misspelt keywords back in the day. So definitely weather, amazing. They basically bidded on anyone that misspelt certain words, and they basically did the ad of you're not you when you're hungry. And it got 500,000 ad impressions. But not only that, it got a shit ton of press coverage and links. So they had a landing page for it. They got a load of links into their website because of a search and PPC campaign. So this sort of stuff is not new. Ikea have had this landing page. It's still live to this day. Go have a look at it. It's got thousands of links, I think, to it. It's called Ikea Retail Therapy. Essentially what they did is they renamed their products to reflect what people are actually searching for. So for an example, a single bed, people might be searching for, you know, remedies for my partner snoring. So what they sell is a single bed, like go over there, mate, kind of thing. But they renamed all of their products, and this got a shit ton of links as well off the back of it. Yeah, 316 domain links from, you know, Drum, Entrepreneur, Adweek. It was absolutely crazy. this is when it comes to digital PR then. So this is somebody said this on Twitter recently, and I see it a lot being debated online. A digital PR is just a PR that builds links. However, they're completely wrong. There's never been more of a time for PR professionals to prove their value of their work. And I actually think this for all industries, so not just digital PR, anything like that. It's all about creative as well. So take this was something that Disney Plus did around Christmas time. All they did is basically create the Home Alone house as a gingerbread, got every single national press, you name it. I think I pulled about 400 media placements for it, internationally, America, you name it. However, not one link to Disney Plus. And that's absolutely crazy. And that brands don't even think about it in this way. Again, the John Lewis ad didn't even rank for their product. So we really need to be thinking about performance and how we can actually build links that drive growth when it comes to online, such as this. This is after our misguided dog jumper campaign. Organic visibility absolutely skyrocketed, but I'm going to show you all how we did that. But it's not always about the number of links. So lingerie, for an example, this was back at, about a year ago, something like that. Essentially, we needed to boost. It was around Valentine's, I think, last year. They wanted a boost to their lingerie section. It was their peak time. And they basically said, we need some links. How many links do you think we need to, to rank? We actually did a bit of an opportunity analysis, and essentially we only needed a handful of links that we thought that could boost it. We built 6 links and we got to number 1. We drove transactions by 140%. So it just shows, it doesn't mean that you have to go viral every single time just to get, boost of rankings. Sometimes you just need 6 links. So how do we need to think? We need to think about is a 3-step process. What are we trying to achieve? What can we do to earn the coverage and engagement? And what can we do to turn that coverage into links and search impact? I think a lot of people just think about number 2, really, is what can we do to earn coverage? So what sort of campaign can we recreate that national press are going to talk about, or big publications and sites? They don't necessarily think about the other parts. So this is just some of our digital strategies of how we do that. So there's product PR, getting links in directly into products, newsjacking, so being reactive constantly that our clients are in the press and landing links at all times. Creative campaigns, data-led reports on thought leadership. These are just some of the areas that we focus on to get links and drive traffic to our clients' websites. But what we've realized is there are certain trends or certain things that they have in common. So these are 4 things of what awesome PR stories have in common. So they're relevant to now. They're part of something that is a trend right now. So you can see that I saw the other day that people are getting links off the back of the whole Aldi and M&S thing, where they've done a quick study, just pushed it out because it's a trending topic now. But that's what I mean by you're more than likely going to get more links and better links from high authority publications if your story is trending and relevant to now. As long as it engages a mass audience. So we have to think, okay, is a wide audience or a mass audience going to care about this, or is it very niche? Is it too niche? It all depends, obviously, what you're trying to target, but basically the best PR stories target a mass audience. Would you talk about it in the pub? I often say this is a bit of a common sense kind of thing. Somebody will come up with a campaign idea, and when it's that complicated, you think, would you sit in the pub and tell your mate about that? And they're like, no, not really. And I'm like, exactly, like scrap it, get more simple. And that's what you need to think. But also the fact that a good campaign evokes an emotion. So see, these are just some of our campaigns that have responded to current trends. So the Future Gamer campaign, for an example, this was about 2 years ago, I think. This responded to it was during lockdown. So it was just when lockdown, sorry, I got really excited then. This is just when lockdown had hit, and what had happened is gaming was on the rise. Everybody was obviously stuck indoors, just like online, etc. And we basically visualized the online gamer. Like if you spend all day and all your life basically gaming, this is what the impacts on the physical body would be. And because that was a current topic, it got 400 links and media placements. It's probably, I think, one of Rise 7's best performing campaigns. It had like insane results. We then did dressing gown for House of Fraser. Essentially, it was the Christmas season. They wanted links into dresses. Nobody was going out and wearing dresses. So how the hell could we put House of Fraser in that conversation? We created the dress in gown. So it's basically for anyone that's staying in how to style that up. So we created like fancy dresses and ball gowns for the Christmas party, but as a dressing gown. This got a shit ton of links from all the nationals, from Marie Claire, I think it was on you name it. It was on some of the best publications that House of Fraser wanted. And again, we did everything from Kath Kidson, Animal Crossing was trending at the time. Everybody was playing Animal Crossing. It was massive on Facebook. And we then put Kath Kidson prints into Animal Crossing and then get a shit ton of links from it. So these are just some of our best campaigns. And one thing I've realized is they're always responding to current trends of what's going on now. It does mean that you have to be very reactive and understand what's going on and what are the current trends. And I'll show you how you can do that. So the IKEA campaign, this is something that we did as a proof of. So I actually revealed that it was us as a bit of a fake stunt recently. And the reason being is we get asked a lot, how do you get trending? How do you put, you know, a brand into a trending topic? And how do you create content that goes viral? And essentially we just shown how we do it. So the whole Bernie Sanders thing was trending, and we essentially basically renamed one of IKEA's chairs, did an advert for it, pushed it out on social media, went everywhere, even got national press, and then I basically DM'd the people at IKEA and just said, you're welcome, because they obviously were seeing all this and thinking, who the hell is doing this? You know, this isn't our social team. So I just basically said, you're welcome, and then obviously they're now in touch with us and now we're speaking to them. But these are just examples of us creating content to prove how you just basically put a brand in the center of a trending topic. So how do I know what's trending? We've built our own internal tool now. So we have actually built something which alerts us of every trend in the last 24 hours, in the last week, in the last month, so that we can react fast. However, these are other ways that you can do it. So if you take BuzzSumo and you go onto the trending topic section, you could literally filter it by absolutely anything from sports to food, to parenting, to pets, to tech, science. And it basically pulls up every second the most trending stories at that moment, and you can pull it through for an API feed into your inbox. That's what we basically do. And so that's just one example of how you can get trending topics today to understand what to jump on. Google Trends, obvious one which most people use. The only thing with Google Trends, it shows topics that trend and then die. That's the only thing with Google Trends. It's something that goes big, and then, like, so Super Bowl, Super Bowl doesn't last for very long. However, other things lasted very much longer, and that's where BuzzSumo is really good at looking at, okay, how long has this trend gone on for, which I know, you know, I should jump on. Right now, the fact that, I'm trying to think, there was what's it called? I think it's called Line of Duty. That's massive at the minute. All over Twitter, it's all over the news. Do a Line of Duty campaign, do something around Line of Duty or Netflix series or something like that. That's just an example of a trend which doesn't come and then die overnight. It's lasted actually a couple of weeks, because I think it's a whole season that's going on. And then look at exploding topics. I think it's just explodingtopics.com. Essentially, you can look at all of the trends in the last month from this. I actually love this tool, by the way. It's completely free, but really, really useful to understand what's trending via different categories. Mostly this comes up around digital currency, Bitcoin, and all that sort of stuff, but it's really good for certain accounts. But this is an example of how a campaign failed, and then because the story started trending, or a certain story started trending, how we then got 210 links off the back of that. What it was a report around how much artists earn on Spotify. That's all it was. And one of the key hooks was that Mariah Carey earns a shit ton of money every single year from that repeated, you know, Christmas song, basically, that's on the radio every single Christmas. And we pushed it out and didn't get much pickup. We got about maybe 5 links off of something like that. All of a sudden, Mariah Carey hit #1. Her song hit the #1 in the charts. Everybody was talking about it. It was on Billboard, Enemy, you name it. And we thought, this is the opportunity. This is where we can actually push it out. And we did. I'm going to skip this because I've gone into it a bit more detail, but essentially we just created an asset that revealed every single artist, not just Mariah Carey, but, you know, Ed Sheeran, you name it. But because that started trending as a topic, we then pushed it out. Not only that, we had all of the songs from Joan Lewis Christmas ads. John Lewis was trending at the time because they released their new one, then pushed it out, and then same with Ed Sheeran. So we really spotted opportunities to constantly be pushing out our content to get links at that time. And we even landed TV coverage. So this was just a summary of the results. But when it looks to engaging a mass audience, what you really have to think about is talking to a bigger audience than just your customer. I know that's the hardest thing to persuade your clients to do. However, you need to think about it as in the bottom tier. If you put it into a tier, the bottom tier is your direct customer. And as you can see, that's the smallest point. in this triangle. The next thing is your customer and their circle. So what is it that they're going to speak to their friends about? What is it that their friends or their people around them encourage or inspire them to do? And then there's everyone. So for an example, when I think about my customer is SEOs. That's who look at my content, you know, talk to Rise at 7. However, when you look at Rise at 7's feed as an example, we also talk to marketers. So we don't just talk to SEOs, we talk to wider marketers when it comes to our content. But then you'll also see content that talks to everyone, young people starting careers, etc., etc. So it's just an example of how do you create content that speaks to people outside of that point, because the audience is much bigger. You need to create content that talks about in the pub. So you just need to ask yourself, would you give a fuck about this? If no, start again. And something that evokes an emotion. So the best campaigns that we remember is because it made us feel something. So laughter, shock, disgust, fear, love are just some of the things that we feel when we see campaigns. I often think to myself, like, okay, well, if I think back about the campaigns that I've loved in the last year, it's always the ones that I've ticked one of these boxes. It's very hard to remember campaigns, like big ones anyway. So the ones that really stand out have done this. So how do we get links? You need to have something on site which ticks at least one of these boxes, something that adds value to your journalists and your users, positions you as an expert, acts as a resource, and something that is engaging. So many people get this wrong. So many people just create a blog post to link to because they think, you know, I'll just get links off the back of that. But is that blog post adding value to a journalist? Is it something that they need to link to? Probably not. So I always say if they can write about the story without linking, completely start again. So these are just examples of how we added extra value to the, like, certain brands like Ricky. So Ricky.com were a sex toy provider, small startup business, taking on, you know, the likes of Ann Summers and Love Honey. And essentially they wanted links into the site to improve SEO, but they needed much more than that. He was a startup company that didn't have much revenue. And essentially we created a product. It was the world's first, it was like take a Kinder Egg with a sex toy inside. It was an Easter egg with a sex toy inside, with a children's toy inside. Sorry, it was a Easter egg with a sex toy inside. Sorry, I got that mixed up then. And we pushed this out as a product. So we had a product landing page. It was actually real. We created 200 of them. And because this was something that people could actually buy, it got 96 links back to the product page. This drove 12K in direct revenue to the website. 43,000 people clicked to go and buy that. That's absolutely crazy. What we did, because we sold out of those 200 pretty fast, we basically changed the buy now button to a email capture. So it said, if you want to be alerted when this comes back in stock, put your email address and we'll let you know. And 10,000 people put in their email address. That's crazy. That means that Ricky now has 10,000 email addresses of people that love, you know, stuff like this, sex toy, you know, products that they can remarket to. That is so much valuable than anything else. But that's just a way that we thought of, okay, this is something that we can link to, but also then capture data and, you know, drive traffic for a brand, for a small startup brand. This is an example of how we build something that has to be linked to. This was a client of mine back in the day called Stabley Head. Essentially what they do is they do car and motor trade insurance. What we did is we pulled data of how much money every car brand makes every second. So we basically took their yearly sales and divided it by, you know, to get the value of every second. Bentley makes £14, Volkswagen makes 822. Then we looked at how many units they sell in that second to make that, etc., etc. And the only way to visualize this data was like a live ticker. So you pressed play and it basically just showed how much all of these car brands are making, you know, whilst we sat here and I do this talk kind of thing. And when I sent this to press, there is no other way to explain this story without linking. You have to link to this. People will talk about, you know, BMW makes X pound a minute, or several thousand every day or something like that. but to tell the full story, because it is a resource, they have to link to it. And it did. It got links from Top Gear, CNN, USA Today, you name it. I think it got like over 100 links all to this, just because it was an asset that you have to link to. And this is just an example as well of Love Honey. So what they really simple campaign, they use their own data to map out people's sex toy interests. So, you know, where is the capital of the butt plug and things like that. I think it was ended up being Brighton, which is quite fun. But essentially what you do is you select the area. So I could select Sheffield or London or whatever, or Manchester. And it basically told me what is the most popular sex toy in my area. And all the data was mapped out. You have to link to this because it's the only way for you to find out your area, unless the regional press cover it. So they got a shit ton of links. If you have a look at this, just type in Love Honey sex map. They got a shit ton of links into this asset. But the reason that it got links is because you have to find something out about yourself. You know, I wanted to find out what is the sex toy capital of, you know, so that's the reason that it got links. So if a journalist can cover a story without linking, then completely start again. We need to create content on the site that people care about, want, or have to click on. That's the thing about, okay, if it's just a blog post that sums up a bit of data, how many people are going to read that? I often say that sometimes, you know, clients don't care about traffic, which is mad. Like, I think that's completely crazy, but it's up to us as experts and people that we want to stand out, is to go, I can get your links, but I can also drive 20,000 people to your website. That's like unheard of. So to do that, you have to create content that people want or have to click on. So let's talk about links that drive sales. I often see a lot of Twitter, you know, debates like building links doesn't drive money, it doesn't drive revenue. Yeah, it does. You can absolutely do that through product PR. So we did this, dog jumpers. All it was is matching dog jumpers for you and your dog. Got 77 links. It drove 82,000 people, completely sold out. What actually happened is, went into Misguided. One of the owner, Knitting, basically said, I've created some dog jumpers last year. I think he had several thousand in the warehouse that I'd never sold. Can you come up with something to get rid of them? So obviously was like, yeah, of course you can. Like, we can do anything with dog jumpers. They didn't really do any PR around it, which I thought was mental. So I was like, I can PR that and actually, you know, create a story. I turned the story around in literally 10 minutes. And all I did is I took the jumper that they had, found a matching one on the website of like a human one. And I basically just said, Misguided launched matching dog jumpers. They didn't. I just matched it up. It was just an idea that I pulled out my arse, to be fair. But it drove 82,000 people to the website, 77 links, and we completely sold out of them. So much that Knitting was like, bloody hell, you've sold out of them quick. And he went and made more. And I was like, right, I've got to flog them now. But that's the sort of thinking that we have, is you can turn anything into a PR story. You just need to be a bit more creative. And when it comes to driving traffic from publications, we have something called a link index. Essentially, a lot of SEOs, all they really care about is DA. I hate it when people ask me, you know, what's the sort of DA that you're targeting? Obviously, we're going to go for high DA websites. We're not going to like produce crap. However, this is something to show that DA isn't the be all and end all. Essentially, let's give an example. Yahoo here has the highest DA, I think. Yeah, 75, not 75, 95. So Yahoo has DA of 95. However, Tyler has a DA of 60. I can't include the figures here, which is why I've done a bar chart, but essentially drove a shit ton more transactions than any other publication, so many more sessions, 79,000 social shares, and we got 5 links off it during, I think it was a space of 8 months. I pulled this data at the time. So this just shows that it doesn't necessarily matter about the DA. So here's another one, the Mank. The Mank is a DA of 34, not massive, really local website. Manchester, Misguided are based in Manchester. So highly relevant publication for them and their audience. People in Manchester love Misguided just because it's local. Transactions was quite low, but it actually drove people to buy something, which is what people don't believe actually happens. Actually drove more sessions than quite a lot of publications. Like Daily Mail, the Mank drove more sessions to the website than Daily Mail, and it drove 14,000 social shares. So when Misguided are talking about, can you go get us links from X publication, we can say, these are the publications we want to target, and they'll ask why, and I'm like, because it drives all these transactions, all these social shares. That's where your audience are. People are reading Tyler because they are buying from Misguided. Like, that's where our audience is, and that's how you need to think about it. So firstly, understanding where's your audience is understanding that. So what publications are they even reading? An example of how you can do it. So this is the final kind of run, but this is a case study, but I want you to take away the way that I thought about the execution of this and how we thought about traffic and engagement rather than SEO, DA, etc. So Christmas Tinner, tell you the story. 2013, the Christmas Tinner launched. So this was way before Rise at 7. It was a PR agency. I can't remember what it's called now. A traditional PR agency basically ran this campaign for game, and it was just a free course dinner, Christmas dinner in a tin. For any gamer that doesn't want to leave their gaming chair on Christmas Day, they don't want to spend time with the family, they just want to sit in their bedroom playing game. So they created a free course Christmas dinner in a tin, and essentially it went everywhere. It's one of their biggest brand campaigns they've ever done. Got 15,000 tweets, hundreds of thousands of social shares, viral press coverage across 18 different countries. However, it got 0 SEO value. No content was on the website about the Christmas Tinner. They got 0 links back to the website. It drove absolutely no SEO value. So basically, game came to us in December 2019, just as I'd launched Rise at 7. So I was like, oh my God, like, of course I'd love to work with games. So I really put my effort into making sure I won that. They basically said, make our most famous campaign, the Christmas Tinner, go viral again, but this time help us get links. So I was like, fucking hell, how the hell do I make a viral campaign go viral again? Number one, it's hard to go viral in the first place, so never mind going viral again, but then get us links. So I'm going to talk about how an SEO thinks they target by DA, but how we need to think is by engagement, traffic, and brand awareness. So step one, where do people consume gaming news? So when I was executing this campaign, so to kind of sum up what I did, essentially I basically launched a vegan and vegetarian option of the Christmas Tinner. This is just an idea that I decided on based on some audience research. When I looked into the site search on Game's website, people were searching for Christmas Tinner, and obviously there was no content on the website, so it just came back 0 results. However, there was like 18,000 people that searched for vegan Christmas Tinner. So I knew that it was in demand. That's where I come up with the campaign idea. We then did some research on some vegan communities and vegetarian communities on Facebook to understand, okay, what should be in this ingredients? And we produced the Game Christmas Tinner vegan and vegetarian style. But what we needed to think about when we executed this is, where do people consume gaming news? So I actually connected with a gaming journalist. I actually hired him in the end, and he was at The Guardian as a gaming, he was a gaming news writer. And I basically said to him, where do you guys get the latest game updates and news? So when PS5 are launching a new console, or, when there's a new COD coming out, or new FIFA or anything like that, where do you get the news? Do you get PlayStation send you a press release? He said, do you know where we get our news? Reddit forums and fan forums. He said, we don't get press releases from PlayStation. They're very kind of VIP and very secretive about what they're up to. So most of the gossip comes from forums like this. The media are actually the last to know, and this is where they get their news from. So the media are constantly crawling Reddit in terms of gaming news to get their, stories. So step 2, I then thought, okay, well, where are Games audience? So using Ahrefs, I pulled a list of every single link that ever pointed to Games website, looked into GA to see where the traffic has come from. And basically where we expected to see was like TechCrunch, high DA websites driving traffic. But they weren't. TechCrunch aren't where gamers read. It's Lab Bible, it's, Mirror and all that sort of stuff. So we knew that these were the sort of publications that we should target when it comes to our audience. And then we thought, okay, well, if the campaign's already been ran before, where got the most social engagements? Because then we know that that's where our audience are reading. So we basically pulled every single list of coverage that covered the Christmas Tinner last time, put it into BuzzSumo, and it basically just said that the drum got the most social shares out of every publication. But it made me think, the drum is full of marketing. That's the sort of people that follow the drum and share their news. My mum doesn't know what the drum is. Do you know what I mean? Like, people, my uncle doesn't know what the drum is, or my nephews or anything like that. It's marketers and advertisers that know what the drum is as a publication. So I knew the Christmas Tinner got shared so many times because the marketing community liked it. So I thought, okay, I need to get the marketing community loving this campaign, and that's where I'm going to get links. If I can get everyone in marketing talking about the Christmas Tinner from, all the other advertising agencies, etc., and all Adweek and Campaign and all that talking about it, that's where everybody else is going to talk about it. Daily Mail will then start picking it up. I need it to get trending in marketing for them to get the links. So this was my strategy. I seeded the campaign via Reddit forums to start with, because I knew that that's where journalists saw gossip, they saw news. So I seeded all the campaign on Reddit. I then launched it with the drum. So the editor of the drum wrote about the story last time, is a guy called John. And I basically DM'd him and I said, hey, John, do you remember the story you wrote in 2013 about the Christmas dinner? Do you want to rewrite about it again? Because by the way, tomorrow, a vegan and vegetarian's launching. He went, send me, I want it as an exclusive now. So sent it to him and I got it trended in marketing. And then I amplified it through national press. Usually the way that we all normally think is we just go to national press in the hope of getting links, but we thought about it in different ways. And the results were absolutely huge. It was across every single national media, you name it, across 14 countries, drove, 85,000 people to the website, completely sold out, 159 links. It was just absolutely crazy. A lot of people said, did we actually create the tinner? We actually did. We tried to produce several thousand of them, but just before Christmas, the production lines was just too busy. So we only created several of them, and we had to send them to Good Morning Britain and This Morning and things like that, where they did taste tests and stuff. So we actually did produce them, but not 2,000 like I hoped, because we just couldn't create them. But Christmas Dinner Game then created them afterwards the next year. We got a shit ton of micro content across social media, and this is just natural. This is influencers talking about the Christmas dinner, people tweeting it. So there's a guy called Bird Meets Food, massive influencer on YouTube. He then naturally talked about the Christmas dinner. We didn't pay him to, but that's absolutely crazy that they did. And it got millions and millions of views because it landed on TV as well. In terms of the search impact, if you type in Christmas dinner now, Game comes up. Basically, when you typed in Christmas dinner before, Game didn't even come up, but that's because they didn't have any content on the website. The landing page of the Christmas dinner was the third biggest landing page behind Black Friday. So absolutely crazy that this was like huge traffic driver. And what we actually did is on the landing page of the Christmas dinner, the biggest area that they wanted to drive was gaming chairs. Gaming chairs is one of their biggest products they make most money from, because gaming chairs are expensive. So we basically had internal links into gaming chairs. Just before the campaign, Game ranked for one keyword around gaming chairs. After the campaign, they ranked for 400 keywords. So it was just incredible just to see the impact of internal links into the gaming chair section of the website. More and more people were searching for the brand as well as the product, and we track brands. So this is brand impression, what the impact is from a positive and a negative point of view, and the positive engagement basically with Game was huge. We had a few negative uplifts. I remember a Game at the time was like, oh my god, like what's the negativity, like should we be cautious? And essentially it was just people saying like how minging it is, because it was minging. I tasted it myself, it was absolutely filthy. So yeah, that was all it was, but that's what makes it shareable, the fact how disgusting it was. And this was just a summary of the campaign, but I wanted to kind of show the way of thinking about how to get links, but how to also track the results of digital PR as well. Thank you so much. If anyone's got absolutely any questions, fire at me. Feel free to follow me on all the social channels, and I also vlog my journey of Rise at 7 as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. That was brilliant. There are a few questions, so I'll fire away if that's okay. Tom was asking so besides kind of exploding topics and BuzzSumo and some of the other ones you mentioned, what other tools do you kind of enjoy using? What would you say are your favorite tools?
Ooh, trying to think. sharedcount.com is a free tool. It basically just pulls the social shares of every single link. So if you want to know all the social shares, the only thing is it does 10 max unless you want to pay for it. So you just have to do 10 at a time. There's ways around not having to pay. So that's one of them. I love Ahrefs, to be honest. Systrix, I look at ranking changes on Systrix. I'm trying to think what else is really good tools. That's mainly the ones that I use, to be honest.
No, it's all good. I think it's always good for people to have a few recommendations.
Yeah, I was racking my brain then, trying to think of more.
I suppose I've got another one here actually from Narada. Can you share perhaps some template tips? And do you prefer to send your sort of full research in the first email to a journalist or a contact?
Yeah, so what I usually do is I write my outreach emails as if it's writing an article. I make it so easy for journalists to, in the nicest way, copy and paste. I make it so easy that if they just, I even write my emails like a headline. So I have my headline, my image, just like imagine a Daily Mail article, headline, image, and then key stats. So I get to the point at the beginning and then go into further detail. I'll include some sort of imagery or video, and then I'll include, okay, if you want to see more of this data, click here. So I'll always link a Dropbox which has more imagery, all the data, etc. So I do try to make my outreach emails packed with information, but short and concise as well. Keep it short and concise, to the point, looks like an article itself, but loads of links to, if you want the full data here, if you want more imagery or video, you can look at Dropbox, etc. So that's usually how I outreach. So much that we rarely get journalists email us back because they don't need to. They've got everything they ever need. And that's our job as a PR, is to give journalists everything they need in one go. That's literally the hardest thing, but the best thing someone can learn.
Yeah, make it as easy as possible for them to share it, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
Penny was asking if there was some advice for sort of solo in-house marketers who might be looking after sort of brand, website, social events, search, SEO, and sort of digital PR can end up being quite in a long list of priorities. What sort of things would you prioritize if you're perhaps doing loads of different things
yeah, I always feel bad for like some in-house marketers because like they do have to do everything. Like they don't specialize, they end up being like just full-blown marketers, digital marketers. I think it's best from your perspective, Penny, just to kind of ask what the priorities are for the business and then focus on in that way. I can't necessarily say right now like what you should do in terms of prioritize. However, I would always focus on on-site content. Like on-site content is something you can then repurpose for social. It's something you can then push out for digital PR. Basically, think of something that you can turn one thing into 10 things. And on-site content is one of them. So I think that's probably the best way to focus and start when it comes to maybe a solo role like yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I think for us, when we ever get a client in who might have a slightly limited budget but wants to do everything, our approach always, what's going to have the biggest impact on bottom line, really, for you? And it's a bit difficult to answer
that. Yeah. Every business is different.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone else was just asking, what do you think the future is of sort of more traditional PR? Do you just see it merging with digital marketing over time, or will it still, think, kind of be the more traditional stuff and the digital stuff?
Do you know what's an interesting question? Because I feel like my initial response would be that I do think it'd merge into more digital side. However, there's always going to be a need for, offline brand building. There's always going to be a need for reputation and things. And I can tell you now, digital PRs, they don't think about reputation. They just think about links. And that's me being honest. Like, a lot of people will probably shoot me for saying that, but that is the honest truth. But I actually don't see myself as a digital PR anymore. I see myself as a content marketer. But there's a way to think about things differently, but I think traditional PR will always have a space from a building brand perspective, managing reputation, and definitely I actually think that might ramp up, because I think it's so harder to manage that online, because it's so easy to go wrong online. And so easy to say something in an instant and it gets seen by millions. So yeah, I think it will transition into a lot more digital side. However, I still think there's space for it. So if anybody's listening to this that's in the traditional space, I think it's important to learn as much digital as you can.
Yeah, definitely. Someone else is asking, so how do you measure the reach of your campaign, sort of sharings, mentions, etc.? I think you mentioned a few tools earlier, but is sort of any others you tend to use?
Yeah, we use YouGov. YouGov is to track brands. So this is literally how many people saw our brand in the last month. And this is like normal people outside of marketing. This is, your mums, your dads, your uncles, your sisters. This is something that tracks the overall reach and how the big impact of what we do. Not gonna lie, YouGov is very expensive. But there are other ways to track. So if you use tools like Brandwatch as well, but Brandwatch is so expensive, but tools like that, you basically can track reach, impressions of your content, but it's really hard to do that unless you're not pushing your content outside of just PR and you're thinking about, okay, well, how do we get our content on social as well? But yeah, BuzzSumo is one of the best tools, to be honest, and for tracking all that sort of stuff. It shows me how many people have wrote about the campaign. It shows me how many social shares it got, how much reach it got, etc. So that's probably one of the best tools.
Excellent, thank you. I think just a couple of final questions, and then we'll let you get on with the rest of your day, Carrie. But someone else asked about, do you sort of reach out to journalists on Twitter or LinkedIn as well in cases where you can't find an email? You know, does your approach to that differ a little bit?
I've never done LinkedIn. I do Twitter a lot. So I've seen people, like some journalists on Twitter that are obviously really funny and a bit weird. They're like, oh, don't contact me on Twitter and things like that. Admittedly, I build relationships on Twitter to be able to do that. I don't just DM anyone. A good example of something that I did recently, actually. So the misguided dog jumper campaign, for an example, it landed on Tyler, as I mentioned. Tyler drove the most transactions and social shares. And that's something that journalists don't have access to. They don't know that data, but it makes them get a pay rise and a promotion. So what I did is I sent them a screenshot of our report and I said, hey, Jenny, or whatever her name was, at Tyler, I just said, by the way, you know, you wrote about the misguided dog jumper campaign for it. She's like, oh yeah, like I remember you, kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, well, pulling the report now, by the way, your article drove X amount of traffic and transactions to misguided. And straight away she's like, oh my God, thank you so much for sending me that. She's got to send that to her boss and to obviously make her boss like impressed. So that sort of data they don't have access to. Now she follows me on Instagram, she follows me on Twitter, and whenever I have a story, I just DM her on Twitter or whatever and get coverage. But that sort of tactic just works in terms of building relationships. Obviously not many people have been able to build real life relationships during COVID and things like that. Like meeting journalists isn't something that I've ever done. I've done it twice, but only because my boss made me, not because I wanted to and I thought it was valuable. But I actually think you can build relationships online. So Twitter, in short, Twitter is something that I DM journalists to pitch stories and to get their email addresses and stuff.
Absolutely. And I suppose there was a follow-up question to that, but I think we've just answered it, which is, you know, do you think that those sort of connections are really important, sort of meaning that once a journalist covers your story, then, you know, they're more likely to do it other times as well? And I think the answer to that is absolutely yes, isn't it?
Yeah. Something as well that I'm doing, probably shouldn't tell you this, but I don't care, is I'm building Rise at 7 to be an agency that when we only sell good stories into press, so it makes it easier that when you send an email to journalists at Daily Mail or Tyler, they recognize, oh, that's Rise at 7, they're going to send us something good. We actually now have journalists coming to us. So we've got like an email address where journalists come to us and ask us for data, they ask us for studies, comments and things like that. That I've built up over the last 2 years. That's something that doesn't happen overnight, but that can also help you if you think about, okay, how do we create a strategy where journalists come to us that actually think when we drop a campaign into their inbox, they want to open it. Make your jobs easier for yourself, basically. So I think if you can start thinking about wider strategy rather than just like a one-to-one relationship, how can people love your agency as well? Then it makes things easier.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I think that's probably it, unless anyone's got any final questions. I'll just keep a quick eye. Oh, well, I love this question, so we're going to do it. And then
what was it? I can't see.
Will Colin the Caterpillar win their court case, or will Aldi just carry on winning on social?
Aldi will just keep on winning. So yeah, this is my theory. Yeah, this is my theory. So I've seen some people saying, oh, it's a marketing stunt between them both. It's not. They wouldn't be able to do that. Like legal wouldn't sign that off. What's happening is M&S are suing them. Aldi know they won't win because there's so many other brands that have done the exact same thing. So they haven't got a court case, basically. Aldi have then decided, you know, their legal team have said, that's not going to go to court, or it's not going to go through. Let's use this as a way to obviously like go big. M&S have thought, fuck, because their Aldi are just winning every single time. So yeah, Aldi will win this one, I think. I'll be very, very surprised if anything goes into court and actually happens in terms of like sued and things like that. But the other day, I can't say who, I was working with a brand, a big, massive brand, and we had an idea which could have caused a bit of controversy, probably could have got us sued. And I didn't realize that what they did is they said, love the idea, like, I think this is amazing. I thought straight away I'd get declined. However, they said, no, love it. We're going to send it to our legal team. And what we do is we value up the cost of getting sued, and we basically work out whether it's worth it. And I was like, fucking hell. I was like, I love this brand. Like, I didn't realize this is what happened. So they valued up the cost of being sued. And they basically said, we'd get more return on investment doing the campaign than we would sued. So we may as well just do it. And I didn't realize that's how some of the legal teams think in terms of marketing. So maybe that's what Aldi did. Aldi just thought, fuck it, it's worth it. They're not going to earn that much money from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aldi did a similar, I think it was Aldi did a similar thing with Brewdog, didn't they? And then they ended up having Aldi IPA. If anything, I think it'll be good for Aldi to lose that court case if they could. Because actually probably just relaunch, Sid the Slug cake or whatever, and probably get more out of it.
Yeah, and people don't care. So we did something where we tracked. So one of our clients, maybe a year or so ago, got sued by a big celebrity. I can't say who. Got sued by a big celebrity, and we tracked. Okay, is that all that negative press? Is that going to impact our brand? They saw a massive increase. People didn't give a shit about being sued. They just wanted to get, cheaper products and deals and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting understanding okay, does your audience care? Does your audience care that Aldi is in a court case with M&S? No, they love it. And that's look at social media's impact. So they see the return on investment is much bigger than a court case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, but thank you ever so much, Carrie. That was a really good talk. I personally really enjoyed it, and I think everyone else did as well. Thank you everyone else for attending. If there are any additional questions or anything, please feel free to pop us an email or drop us a message on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to cover them off for you. The slides and the recording will also be shared with you all later today, so you can go back through if anything you missed. And also, I think once you leave this webinar, you'll be directed to a feedback form, so if you can take a couple of minutes to complete this, that'd be great. Our next event is Drawing Insight from Your Data, and it should be live now. So again, please do sign up for that as well. That'd be fantastic to see all of you there. And yeah, please do head over to sort of LinkedIn, Facebook or Twitter to give us a follow and keep up to date. But thanks a lot, Carrie. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us, and have a lovely rest of your day.